Hello and a very warm welcome to the late breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking. Back for another midweek episode. Sam, we're recording this one 2 days early, so what has happened in the world of F1 in the last 2 days?
Screw the F1. We watched Indy 500 and it was immense. I absolutely loved it. Big up to Joseph Newgarden celebrating in the crowd. Unlucky Pato, sadness in your eyes and to everyone else's. But I had a great time. Drink that milk, baby.
I mean, sadness for Pato because he should have been out of the race about 100 laps earlier.
Goodness.
Man's just called it the juggler because that steering wheel is woo.
I'd still be screaming now. I'd just be screaming constantly and no breath.
Doing this. Yeah. That was literally what he had to actually do at 220 miles an hour.
The thing is, though, that was the whole last stint. He was just at 105% constantly. Anyway, and Harry, you've managed to learn a new skill. You can now perfectly do a drill noise.
Yeah, well, I'm glad this has made it into 2 episodes, and also made it into Power Rankings, and now also the main episode. Yeah. I might break it out later on for you lucky folks.
If you feel like
it. Might not.
Harry, the drill Eade.
There it is.
Awful for audio members.
So bad. We are actually going to talk about some F1, believe it or not. We've got back and forth later on. Always glad to see that make an appearance. Bonus payments still on the cards in the next Concord agreement for Ferrari. Hamilton and Russell and their qualifying pace. Some interesting comments from Hamilton in that regard. But we're going to start out front because, and I don't know the last time this happened. I wish I'd looked this up beforehand. But we've had 3 different teams win in the last 3 races, which is not a common occurrence. We've had Lando Norris win in Miami. We've had Verstappen just about win in Imola. And then, of course, last time out, Charles Leclerc winning in Monaco, the first time he's won his home race. Both championships have closed up at this point, drivers and constructors. So, Sam, we want to ask this question. Is there a championship fight, yes or no?
I'm going to go bold. Yes, there is a championship fight. It is opened up. The upgrades that McLaren and Ferrari have brought are actually viable. They're actually working. And it looks like currently Red Bull don't have, well, I say an answer. They brought the answer before the question was asked. It's like that smarmy kid at school who knew all the answers before the paper had been put down. You're like, he's going to get an A+ anyway. So what's he moaning about? That's what Red Bull have done. They've turned up to the first class of the year and gone, we've got it all right anyway. Thanks, miss. And then they've left. And then the answers have been handed out. And they've gone, oh, wait, there's some extra ones on the back of the test paper that we didn't notice because I didn't turn over the final page. And Ferrari and McLaren have gone, got that right. And now we've got a competition on our hands. I do think that it isn't going to be as simple as, race 1 won by X, race 2 won by Y, race 3 won by Z for the rest of the season. I expect Max Verstappen to come back into form. I expect the Red Bull will be far more comfortable at the majority of the tracks we're going to see, these classic circuits coming up. For a lot of Europe, I think the Red Bull will be okay. But Canada, for example, whilst it is not as street circuity as the likes of Monaco, it is regularly cold. It is quite narrow. It produces some difficult racing. The car can feel uncomfortable there. And I wouldn't be surprised if some similar characteristics rear their head from Monaco to Canada. And therefore, both Ferrari and McLaren could have an advantage. We saw a similar thing in Miami, of course, when Lando Norris went on to win. So I don't think it's, all over and out at the moment. I do think there's a chance that, especially if Perez keeps underperforming, if Ferrari and McLaren have 2 drivers every single time in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and Red Bull only have 1 driver scoring in the top 5, the constructors most definitely, I think, is up for grabs. I do not think this is game over. So, yeah, I'm being bold. I'm going to say it. I'm excited. I think we could see some results starting to switch.
Harry, do you think there is a championship fight, or are we getting ahead of ourselves here and we should all just, have a sit down, just let's see how this plays out?
I mean, this will surprise absolutely no one, but I'm going to say TBC.
The fence is back.
I'm sure.
I think Imola more than Monaco encouraged me, or I guess Miami encouraged me more because Monaco is quite an anomaly. And obviously, I know that the Red Bull wasn't good there, but it is an anomaly of a circuit. I would just if we get to this time next week, sorry, not the next week after Canada, and we've had either a different winner, i.e., like a Ferrari or a McLaren win, or we've had a Verstappen win where it's like Imola was, where Norris was right behind him, then I'll say yes. I just think maybe I'm
Need to
just a
see
bit
one more.
scarred by how. Yeah, just one more to convince me, because I feel like there are a few mitigating circumstances in the ones we've had so far, and that's why I say Imola gives me more hope or more reason for hope than I guess the other two where we've had the Norris and the Leclerc win, because obviously Monaco's an anomaly, and then with Miami, I know Norris was quick and obviously deserved the win, but Verstappen had some damage that he picked up on the curb and stuff. So yeah, I just want to see one more. And again, it can be a Verstappen win, but if there are others in the mix that weekend, McLaren or Ferrari, then I'll say yeah, I think it could be game on.
I can see where you're coming from, and it does sound weird on paper, but I think you're right that of the 3 races that we've just had, the most encouraging one, or the one that makes me believe we'll have a championship fight the most, is the one that Verstappen won. Because it is the one that was the closest thing to a straight up fight. You're right, Monaco is often some weird anomaly, and Red Bull and Max Verstappen were quite vocal over the weekend that they have a very clearly defined issue with the car that they don't think is easily solved, but is there every weekend, but comes out the most at a circuit like Monaco, where essentially they can't run the car too soft, because they can't run the car too soft without losing a great deal of downforce, which of course you can't afford at Monaco, but doesn't impact you as much other circuits. So that is probably a bit of an anomaly. And like you say, Miami, we don't quite know how that would have played out without Verstappen making the error and hitting the bollard and the safety car. But Imola was pretty much a fair, straight fight, and it could have gone either way towards the end of that Grand Prix. So if we do see another result like that, then that gives me more reason to believe. My instinct is that, at least in the Drivers' Championship, Verstappen keeps everyone at arm's length. I'm not saying that he's going to run away with it necessarily. I can see the likes of Leclerc, Norris, McLaren and Ferrari taking wins away from Verstappen for the rest of this year. I don't think, and I can't wait for this to be wrong, I don't think that Verstappen will now go on a tear and win every race for the rest of this year. I think that there will be opportunities for the other drivers. My instinct is, as soon as it becomes a little bit closer, Verstappen just takes another 2 or 3 wins and extends it out a bit again. And then it might come back a bit closer, and then Verstappen extends it out again. That's my prediction of how it will go. I think the Constructors is game on, though. I do think the Constructors is more vulnerable for Red Bull. Again, can't wait for them to be 1-2 at every race for the rest of this year now.
Perez wins the next 10.
In terms of McLaren and Ferrari, because I think that's mostly who we're talking about here, obviously Mercedes are much closer to understanding their car at this point, so it could feature them as well.
Any day now.
And resurgent Esteban Ocon, of course, who's on the war mode now after Monaco. Out of Ferrari and McLaren, Sam, who do you think poses the greater challenge to Red Bull?
I think this is a trickier question to answer than your first question about, is there a championship fight? Because I think the obvious answer is to say McLaren. And I think I wouldn't blame anyone for saying McLaren, because you look at the last 3 Grand Prix, and more consistently or not, they've been there. Actually, it's further back than that. Even the likes of China, right? Lando Norris was fantastic around China when they brought the upgrades, started bringing the upgrades in. And they've had glimpses of really promising moments across the whole season. And I think Ferrari, actually, before they brought their upgrades in, Australia was kind of the only place where you think, yeah, good stuff. You managed to capitalize on an issue for someone else. But other than that, it's just been best for the rest. I think Ferrari are a bit of ironically, a dark prancing horse here. And I think that actually we haven't been able to see how their upgrades work on a completely natural racetrack. First time they brought them in was Imola. Difficult to acclimatize them. The track is hard to get overtakes done. McLaren were very, very good. Red Bull was still pretty decent there. Monaco, as we've already said, it's an outlier. But even on the outlier, they got the win. Now, I think that if Ferrari and Freddy Vass can just keep implementing these little upgrades, these little steps forward, I actually think Ferrari might be the bigger threat. But right now, I think McLaren are the ones that pose the current top spot. They pose the danger. But I think that the lineup that they have, both McLaren and Ferrari, is better overall than the lineup that Red Bull has. And I think Red Bull need to be worried of a more consistent approach from both of those teams over what Perez is able to achieve on a race by race basis. And I think that's where they risk throwing away one of the two titles.
What do you think, Harry? Which of those teams do you think poses a greater threat at this point?
I think I'd go McLaren. It's very difficult because I think both of those teams have an argument to say they've got the best driver lineup on the grid at the moment. Which makes this it could be very interesting how those two take points off each other going forward. But I'd say potentially McLaren. I think Carlos Sainz has maybe had a couple of more off races than the two McLaren drivers. But again, I think it's very, very difficult. It's very close and very difficult to say. So it just depends, I think, who develops their car the best. Because I sense maybe McLaren can do that. We've seen it happen last year where they outdeveloped other teams. And that's going to give Piastri and Norris the advantage. But it could be really, really interesting battle between those two because there's not a lot. I think there's a lot between them in terms of performance. So yeah, I'll go for McLaren, but honestly, it could be either of them.
I think the answer is dependent on one person, and that person is Oscar Piastri. I think it's all about Piastri. If he can match Carlos Sainz race for race, I think they can be equally as good challengers to Red Bull. But and I know Piastri's been good the last 3 races, but I think there's less to go on with Piastri, and there is still a lingering concern about his race pace compared to those other 3 drivers. I feel more confident to say that on an average weekend, Norris will be a 9 out of 10, Leclerc will be a 9 out of 10, Sainz will be an 8.5 out of 10. Piastri, I don't know. Like there's times where he looks like a 9 out of 10, there's times where he looks like an 8 out of 10. There are other times where he goes a little bit missing towards the end of stints. If Piastri can keep improving and he gets on a similar level to Lando Norris for the majority of this season, then I'm more convinced about McLaren. If not, then I think Ferrari have consistently had the best lineup in terms of how it's performed in the last 2 years in F1. And maybe my confidence goes to them instead. I can see a challenge coming from both teams. If I had to guess which one, Ferrari have burned me so much over the years, so of course I'm going to pick them because I don't learn lessons from life. I don't know. It might be recency bias. It might be Leclerc. It might be the Leclerc taking the win and my emotions taking over here. But I do think Ferrari can pose a threat. Can't wait for them to mess it up from here.
No.
Sorry.
No. Do you think that there's a chance? Because I do, that they maybe are each other's worst enemies here in trying to topple Red Bull. I think there's a real risk that they get in each other's way and aren't able to maximize weekends because they're so evenly matched, because they're so close. They're not able to secure, 2 threes, because actually there'll be Norris in second, Leclerc will be in third, Sainz might be fourth, Piastri might be fifth, and then that might swap around. So instead of, Verstappen winning every Grand Prix, but McLaren picking up second, third every single race and gaining in the constructors. If they're sharing the points across 4 drivers rather than 2, I wonder how much that actually aids Red Bull in the whole fight.
100%. I completely agree with that. And I would not be surprised if that's how this season went, because we've had title fights in the past, successful or unsuccessful. Like take Ferrari in 2017 and 2018, for example. I know Red Bull were there for the odd race in both of those years, but for the most part, they were the sole challengers to Mercedes. So if they were on it, yeah, they could finish first and third or second and third or second and fourth. They didn't often have to worry about a third team. But like you say, there is every opportunity that they take too many points away from each other and they're both somewhat challengers, but neither can properly materialise because they cancel each other out. I could see it happening that way for sure. In terms of Sergio Perez's impact on all of this, Harry, is it going to be qualifying Saturdays that are really going to determine how much of a challenge these other teams can make?
Yeah, I think so, because it's the same old story for Perez. He tends to qualify badly, and then he's going to make up for it in the race, and often does make up for it. But if there's he's been able to do that because the car's allowed him to get in front of everyone else. If there are other challenges in the way now, and we're seeing it a bit already, then it's gonna harm him, because he's not going to be able to get back up to where he should qualify. It doesn't. The problem is for Perez, he's having qualifying sessions where he's not even anywhere near the front. If he was qualifying, but I don't know, 6th out of those 6 cars, it's not ideal, but he's in the mix. But it's not even that where he's having issues. He's qualifying even further back, so he needs to at least be in the mix on a Saturday, because we know he tends to move forward on a Sunday. So yeah, he needs to sort that out ASAP. And it's not what a problem he has all the time, but it's a problem that keeps rearing its ugly head.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's kind of always been the case for Red Bull where we can count on Perez being a few tenths behind Max Verstappen in terms of qualifying pace. And when Red Bull have a clear advantage on the rest of the field, that can easily be Verstappen takes pole and Perez takes fourth. And we've had that at the beginning of this season as well, where Perez has been comfortably behind Verstappen, but because of the advantage the Red Bull has had, it hasn't really cost them too much. But what we've had recently is the field even closer than normal in terms of qualifying. We've had Mercedes close up a little bit. We've had Ferrari and McLaren be in the mix. And suddenly, 4 or 5 tenths away from Max Verstappen isn't good enough for 5th or 6th. It's not good enough to make it through to Q3, or not good enough to make it through to Q2, as was the case in Monaco. So I do think, and it will be easier to overtake at some circuits than Monaco was for sure, but I think a lot rides on Perez's qualifying performances. What do you think, Sam?
And I'll get a case of deja vu. I feel like we had this exact conversation around this exact point of the season last year. Starting well, of course, he picked up a couple of victories last year when the Red Bull was more dominant. And I think we see these extremes. When the car is extremely good, Perez is very good. When the car is good, Perez is mediocre. And when the car suddenly becomes into a level of being challenged by those around him, he isn't good enough to challenge with the absolute top level of Formula One. And that is the case that we're seeing. The last 3 Grand Prix, he has been the worst of the top 6 drivers. This can't be a phase that continues for the entire season. He will let the side down eventually. He's gotten away with it by, one, Verstappen being so dominant in 23. Again, the car being good enough in 22 and Ferrari falling off. But you've got to remember that at one point, Hamilton looked like he finished second in the Drivers' Championship last year until he pulled out a couple of good performances, and Hamilton had a couple of bad ones towards the end of the season. This might be even worse for him. He's no longer even in the top 4 of the Drivers' Championship at the moment. He is the key to ensuring Red Bull get over the line. Verstappen can only do so much weight pulling. He's got the weight of the championship on his back, trying to hand off a stick to Perez, and Perez is distracted by a bird flying in the sky while Verstappen's legs are crumbling under the weight. Perez, mate, pay attention to what you're doing. Take a bit of the load, start turning up. It's only the 8th race into the season. You've got to start delivering, otherwise McLaren and Ferrari will gobble you up.
Gobble, gobble. We'll take our first break at this point. On the other side, we've got comments from Bruno Firmin about Esteban Ocon's crash in Monaco.
Bruno fuming.
My welcome back, everyone. By the way, my favorite thing that's happened in the last few days is the emergence of the character Bruno Fuming. Bruno Firmin, he is sometimes known as, when he's less angry, the Alpine team principal. But he had plenty of reason to be angry at the Monaco Grand Prix because their cars had reasonable starting positions, Pierre Gasly in 10th and Esteban Ocon in 11th. And as we discussed in the race review, Esteban Ocon trying a move on Gasly into Portier doesn't go very well at all. Esteban Ocon out with damage, even with the opportunity to repair the car under red flag conditions. Gasly able to carry on and keeps his position for 1 point. But what caught the attention of many, including us, was some of the comments from Bruno Firmin after the Grand Prix, or during the Grand Prix, after Esteban Ocon's Grand Prix, to be accurate. He said that there would be real consequences for what had happened here and that a tough decision would have to be made. What does he mean, Sam?
This was a bit audacious, wasn't it? I was quite shocked at the comments, and this is why Bruno Fuming is come alive as a new character of the late breaking show. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining the roster. I was shocked. I think Ocon has been one of the star drivers of the season so far. He might be having his best season up until the last maybe 2 Grand Prix. Miami and Monaco stand out as not fantastic in overall scare factors. Tried to take out his teammate in both instances there. But overall, I think Ocon has been really, really strong. So hearing these comments, I thought, bit of an overreaction. You've really jumped the gun here. Has something happened internally that we're not aware of to make you think, why does it sound like he's trying to push out the driver who, up until the end of the Monaco Grand Prix, was their only point scorer and comfortably leading the way racing race out? Both drivers, of course, are up for contract renewal. Both seats are not available. And maybe internally, there seems to be a leaning towards Gasly. There is history that people don't get along with Esteban Ocon. Maybe that's what's happening. This is just assumption. But I think what really has gone on here is at the start of the season, when the Alpine was absolute dog poo, Ocon was pulling out great performances, and we praised him for that rightly. If you go back and check our power rankings, which you can do on Patreon, the link's in the description. We do it after every Grand Prix. You can see how highly we've rated him for the first 7 Grand Prix, and then it almost switched up for Monaco. It's all well and good being very, very good when the car is very, very bad. And, even the best performances gets you nothing. On the first proper occasion where it looked like Alpine could have a double point scoring, and I don't think that's unrealistic to say, you absolutely dogpile on your teammate going into Portier and you ruin any chance of both of you scoring points and then jumping Williams in the constructors. Albon, of course, then scores 2 points. It's quite devastating. So whilst I do think the statement is drastic, and I actually don't think we're going to see anything come out of this, I don't think there'll be any changes to driver lineups. I do not think that suddenly you'll get Jack Doohan driving around in Canada. I do think Bruno Fuming is let his anger speak for him here. I do think that Ocon needs to be wary and make sure that he is delivering consistently when the car is good enough to deliver and not prattling about hitting your teammate into a wall and flipping the car, because it's not a good look for him, especially with contracts up. As much as I think that those 2 drivers are the best asset that Alpine currently have, they are on the way up. The car is improving. Don't screw it up when it's actually good enough to do something with. I get the anger. I do think the words were an overreaction.
What did you make of the comments, Harry, and what could he mean by consequences and action?
Yeah, it was an odd one. I think he has let his emotions run over slightly, because what consequences are you threatening here, Bruno? Losing his seat, that's just extreme. I don't think that's even a thing they'd consider. It did remind me, and look, Esteban Ocon is a quality driver. I don't think he actually gets enough respect for how good he is. But this is not the first time he's had issues with a teammate, and I'm not solely blaming him, but he is the common denominator in these. Because if you go back, he had issues with Perez when they were at Force India. Him and Fernando Alonso, a lot of issues, and this is what kind of reminded me, because at the time, who was Otmar, of course. Otmar was the team principal, and they had to step in and basically. Did they say you can't race each other or something? I remember that was threatened, wasn't it? So he had issues there. Him and Alonso famously tried to kill each other most of the time.
Did he have issues with Verline as well?
Probably. He had issues with everyone that was a teammate. But this is my point. I think for Ocon, again, I'm not solely blaming him here, and he's a quality driver, but if he steps back and looks at these incidents, he is the common denominator in all of them, and maybe he just needs to, I don't know, just readjust his attitude to how he races a teammate. I mean, the incident in Monaco yesterday, like say Sam, he's been very good this year with a car that hasn't been capable of points very often, or if at all. I can see why he's gone for this in terms of it's Monaco. There's not many opportunities. He thinks he could steal the point here for the team, but no one's going to think, apart from me, Ben, because we've got a big teammate, was if he finishes P11 and Gasly finishes P10 at Monaco, no one's going to be like, oh my God, Gasly's the best driver ever and Ocon is washed. It's just not going to big thing. It just felt like a bit of desperation to be like that team leader at Alpine and be the one who's dragged the point out of the car. And it doesn't need to be. It's bigger picture stuff for Ocon, and he's it went way worse than it should have done. So yeah, in terms of the threat itself, I don't think he's going to be kicked out of the seat. But I think I think it's an empty threat, but I don't think it's empty in terms of it was a warning, right, to Ocon to just simmer down, son, calm down. You're a great driver. Just yeah, take a step back sometimes and reassess, because yesterday was just silly. Oh yeah, well, Sunday, because it is technically Wednesday. Sorry.
Sure, yes, that's true. Look, we reviewed the incident on the review itself, and we all agreed, Ocon was ahead at the apex and Gasly should have moved out of the way. Sorry, heavy sarcasm, I should say.
Satire, folks.
Yeah, it was obviously Ocon's fault. And these comments, I have to say, are utterly stupid. They are. What are you doing, Bruno? Like, I can completely understand his frustration, because, look, your two teammates crashing with one another is not ideal, in the immortal words of Sam Sage. Correct. But sometimes crashes happen. It's motor racing. It happens. Even between teammates. You can allow that. But what has happened here, based on the comments afterwards, is a clear violation of what they've agreed before the race. I think it's probably not even the result that has actually infuriated Bruno Firmin the most. It's probably attempting the move to begin with. Even if it had worked, I think he would have had reason to be annoyed at this move, because based on everything that Gasly, Ocon and Bruno Firmin have said, it's clear that they had some sort of agreement of, look, we're not wrecking our race on the opening lap of this Grand Prix. We have a total of 1 point so far this year, and we're starting 10th and 11th. Now, as we know, there probably wouldn't have been more opportunity to score more than 1 point based on how the race went, but they don't know that at that point. There could have been multiple incidents out front. There could have been DNFs. It could well have turned into a 7th and an 8th, or an 8th and a 9th. And those sorts of points could have been so valuable for Alpine based on where they've been. So it sounds as if they had some sort of agreement, and Ocon has just completely ignored that on the first lap. So Bruno Firmin has every right to be as angry as possible in private. Why are you saying this? All this has done has led to, we're chatting about it. It's led to speculation of what does he mean. Does he mean that Jack Doohan will be in the car for Canada? The fact that it's being talked about is ridiculous. If it happens, it would be the most stupid thing I think a team has done in a long, long time. This should not even be entertained based on how, if you were listing the issues that Alpine have had so far this year, Esteban Ocon, even with this crash, doesn't make the top 100. Like, the driver lineup is a solid lineup. Just, come out and say, we're very disappointed with the crash. We will deal with this internally. Behind the scenes, shout at Esteban Ocon for an hour if you want. If that's the right way to approach it, go ahead and do it. Lambast him for it. But what's the point in opening up this needless speculation of what they're going to do with these consequences and action? Why are you saying this? The only thing I think they will actually do is, as you've already referenced with the Force India days, I wouldn't be surprised if they put something in place where these two drivers can't race each other, and they have to abide by team orders in that regard. I don't know exactly, but I think that's the only thing that will come from this. And if anything more does come from this, it's lunacy. It is utter lunacy. I think it was stupid enough to say something, but to do something would be even crazier. I just don't understand what the end game is here. I really don't.
It's all encompassing of their culture, isn't it? Alpine are on a real slippery slope of not having a true leader. They don't know the direction they're going in. The team has no culture to move them forward. There's no togetherness. There's no bonding going on. It feels like a lot of bit parts stuck together. And the moment one shows a crack, the whole organization falls apart. And that's happened. There's been a crack shown, and Bruno Firmin has picked up the sledgehammer and absolutely destroyed any progress they were making in terms of a team. Because we all thought Ocon Gasly, not best mates historically, but actually been doing all right together this year. They've been all right. That's immediately been ruined. They've all been screamed at. And I'm sure Gasly probably walks away and goes, I'm 100% correct now. I should always be in front. I wouldn't be surprised if that's an outcome. You're right, Ben. If Jack Doohan or anyone else or anything else comes from this, it would be laughable, and Alpine will be the other butt of a joke.
In terms of Esteban Ocon's future, we know his deal is up at the end of this year. And we've seen him essentially in the midfield since he debuted in F1, save for the year that he had with Manor, which was very much at the back. And of course, he had a year out as well before joining Renault. But Harry, do you think that this sort of teammate interaction issue that Ocon has seemingly had for his entire career is the thing that will hold him back from going further in his career than where he is at the moment?
I think it could be, and again, and like I said, I don't think it's always his fault, but he is the common denominator here. And if if another team's going to look at him and go, he seems to have issues with every teammate he's placed with. Why would you? It doesn't matter how good you are. You don't, for team harmony. It's just not worth having that. And I think it could. So that's why I think he just needs to have a step back and have a little word with himself about how he races. I'm not suggesting he goes in with the intention of having an incident with his teammate at every race, because I don't think he does. Although sometimes it does look like it, but I don't think he does. Just something, I don't know, something seems to happen where he's always either very close to having a crash or having an incident with his teammate. So yeah, it's one he needs to look at, because I think it could harm him, and I do think that's kind of the. I agree with you, Ben. I don't think it was the wisest thing for Bruno for mid to say, but I think that was kind of part of it. It was almost you're not, you're not indisposable, Esteban. I'm not saying they would be the right call, because it'd be the dumbest call ever, but we can find another driver, because if we carry on like this, then we can't afford to have incidents like that. Alpine can't afford, given their current circumstances, to be having incidents like that. So I think that's why he said it, but I'm not joking. I think that's why he said it, but it's I think Esteban needs to look at how he acts around his teammates, because it could well harm him in the future. Well, if he has a future.
What do you think, Sam?
I don't think Esteban Ocon will ever be in a top seat in Formula One.
Is this the reason?
Well, this and the fact that he's always got a crash like this in him. I think Esteban Ocon's highs are very high. I think when he has a great day, he does peak to the likes of, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez on their best days. I do think he could be not a world beater, but, definitely a top quarter driver in Formula One. And our power rankings have shown that throughout the season, that when he's on a high, when he does ride high, he's great. But the issue is his lowest lows are so much lower than so many around him. His personality, I'm sure he is a lovely bloke, but he clearly seems to rub people up the wrong way. He clearly seems to irritate people when he's competitive against them. That is a running history. There is facts behind that. I'm sure that if you just went down the pub with him, I'm sure it'd be absolutely lovely. The issue is, I think if you were to pick up his highest highs and put them onto a driver that's far more consistent, then yeah, there'd be a chance moving forward. But when you combine a driver that rubs people the wrong way with a driver that also seems to have these crashes in him, I mean, you don't just have to go back to the last couple of years. Do you remember in Brazil, what was it, 2019, 2020, where he absolutely took Verstappen out as a lap car, and we had that fight in the pit lane? Ocon just seems to be the driver that regularly causes a bit of chaos around him, and you kind of always go, oh, it's good. Is something going to go wrong? And I think that when you look at things like Mercedes that have become available, Ocon should be a name in contention. He was a junior driver there. He's managed by Toto Wolff. In theory, he should be considered for this. But no one is really talking about Ocon to Mercedes other than Ocon to Mercedes, ironically. I think he is destined to forever live in a midfield to back marker car where people might take a punt on him because of these high highs and hope that he gets into some level of consistency and doesn't poo someone off because he's had a bad day, basically. So yeah, unfortunately, I think he's done it to himself.
Yeah, it is one thing that's holding him back. And I think the point you made earlier, Harry, was valid in that when you said if Ocon had finished this Monaco Grand Prix 11th and Gasly had finished 10th, no one would have thought that Gasly was the greatest driver in the world and that Ocon was washed. Like, that would not have happened. But I feel like Ocon races with that in mind. And I respect it because he sees, I think he just sees every position as something to be gained, regardless of whether it's your teammate or not, which is exciting. But at the same time, it's not beneficial for his career. I don't know if this is true. This is pure speculation. But we know that Esteban Ocon, in his journey up to F1, had to fight harder than others in terms of he didn't have the finance readily available to go racing like most other drivers around him did. He really struggled in that regard. And it just feels like he's always had that approach where he is racing for his life with every position that he fights for. And I don't think he needs to. In terms of pure pace, I stand by. I really think Esteban Ocon could be in a top team and do a good job. People think I was mad a few weeks or a month ago where I said that I think he has relative pace to Carlos Sainz. I still think that. I think pace-wise, they are on the same level. This is a guy, and I know that the car wasn't as good as it could have been. This is a guy who was essentially a match for Fernando Alonso. There was nothing between them in their 2 years at Alpine. And many people would say that Alonso is still in and amongst the top 5 drivers in the sport, 5 or 6 drivers, and Ocon matched him. Like he clearly has ability, but this is probably more than anything the thing that is holding him back at this point. Before we go to our second break, it's time for everyone's favourite segment. It's F1 Fantasy.
Yay!
We'll start with the best of the best, which doesn't include any of us four. We'll look at the top 3 in the championship. So Sweet Papayas is still dominating out front in first place, so congratulations. Austrian Anthem, who's been a part of the top 3 in the last few Grand Prix as well, is now second. A new entrant, I think, in third, which is Zoo Buggy ESP. Great name.
Great name.
Third place. But how are we doing? Sam, you still lead. 214th.
I'm on the way up.
You're on the way up. As am I. 256th. Get in there.
Read it down my neck a little bit.
Get in there. But speaking of getting there, Kirsty, big mover this week. 396th. As reliably informed beforehand, 2 times points on Charles Leclerc. That's always going to get you higher up the table. Harry, you're... Oh, no.
Let's just keep moving down the fire pole. Just keep sliding.
Harry, there are, in the league at this point, so thank you to everyone who's joined, there are 1,386 entrants.
Brilliant.
Harry, you are in 1,320th.
How? People have joined at Monaco.
There are 66 drivers behind you.
I'm going to put a reminder on my phone to set to change my team for Canada.
Who is in your team? Who is it?
I don't know. I don't
Pascal
know anymore.
He's got the 29th.
Olivier Panis. Jacques
I've
Lafitte.
not looked for a while. It's right. Long time to go yet.
We're only a third of the way through. We go again.
Yeah, exactly.
We move.
We go. Andiamo di nuevo.
Yeah, Andiamo di nuevo.
Oh, man.
Anyway, we are butchering that.
If you are beating all 4 of us, by the way, so anyone who's 213th or better, congratulations. You don't win anything, but hopefully that gives you a bit of pride. We'll take our second break at this point. On the other side, we're chatting about Lewis Hamilton and his qualifying pace. Lewis Hamilton, in the history of F1, has done pretty well in qualifying. Bit of an understatement. He's got over 100 poles at this point. But at least this season, man is struggling. George Russell has outqualified Lewis Hamilton on every occasion bar 1. And Monaco, there were 2 spots between the drivers, with Russell in 5th and Hamilton in 7th. That's also where they finished the Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton was asked about his deficit to George Russell in qualifying and mentioned that he was doubtful he was going to outqualify Russell for the rest of this season. Harry, this is surprising, isn't it?
Shut up, Lewis. What are you talking about, mate? What are you talking about? Lewis Hamilton. He there's no filter to Lewis Hamilton, is there, at all? He always says how he feels, and this is clearly how he felt after qualifying on Saturday. He obviously there's an upgraded component he didn't have for the weekend, and George did. Again, does that matter a huge amount around Monaco? I don't know, but fair enough. You know, he might be expecting not to, but it's almost like he's suggesting, and it's an implication here. He didn't say it outright that he's not getting the same car that George Russell is, and that's just bizarre. And I don't think that would be true. But also,
Would they be wrong for that?
exactly. I've seen a few people suggest this, saying, "Oh, they're favouring Russell." I'm like, "Well, yeah,
They
because
should.
Lewis Hamilton, he signed for Ferrari for next year.
He's leaving.
Why wouldn't they? He's going away." So if that is the case, I wouldn't be shocked or mad at Mercedes if they're giving Russell the upgrades before Hamilton, because it makes sense, because he's going to be their team leader from 25 onwards. So it was just a very odd comment, and I'm sure again I do feel like Hamilton says things. Like I say, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He just speaks how he feels. He says them, but he doesn't think about what. There's no like implicate. He's not trying to imply anything really. He's just saying how he feels at the time. If it's Fernando Alonso, he calculates every single thing he says to anyone ever. But Hamilton, I just think he says stuff about how he feels at the time. And I think if we get to the next race, he probably will be like, "Well, did I say that? I don't remember saying that," etc. And we'll go from there. But it was a very strange one. And looking at this year, he's not been qualifying pace has not been amazing. I mean, pace in general has not been hugely great, but it's not been amazing. So, yeah, there's something obviously amiss there that he doesn't seem to have an answer for. If he's suggesting it's because he's not got the same car, that would be a weird one. But I also can understand if he's not getting the upgraded parts at the same time. But yeah, an odd comment, and it goes back to. I can't remember if I said this in Power Rankings or earlier on. I think it was in Power Rankings, but it just seems like a relationship that's slightly checked out from both sides between Mercedes and Hamilton. Now they're still getting on. They're still. It's like when people break up, but they live in a house together and they still have to live in the house for a bit, and they're just being very civil, but deep down, both of them want to leave, and that's I think where we are now with Hamilton and Mercedes. They're all getting along fine on the surface, but they just wanted this year.
They're not having dinner together. They're eating it in the bedroom.
No. Exactly. Separate rooms.
And the thing is, like, making a decision at the beginning of the season, of course, opens this up. But if you make this sort of decision 20 years ago, you have to go through like 15 or 16 race weekends before it's all done. We still have 16 more races this year. Like, the season's so long that when you make decisions this early, there's a lot of track time before it actually happens. So that will be interesting to keep tabs on throughout the rest of this year. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I think the comments are a little bit throwaway. I do think they resemble a deeper misery around Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes at the moment. Harry, I think you're right. I think that Lewis Hamilton wears his heart on his sleeve and he just kind of goes, "I'm in a bad mood. This hasn't gone the way I wanted it to go. I'm going to say something that I'm feeling." And I think that if you ask at Lewis in a month, "Oh, you out-qualified Russell twice of the last 3 Grand Prix," you said that he'll go, "What? Who cares? Move on with your life." And I think that's who Lewis Hamilton is. He goes, "Yeah, whatever. I was, emotional. Get on with your life." And fair play to him. You should be able to say, what you're thinking. And sport is an emotional thing. Fine. But I think what's quite damning for Lewis here, I think there's a number of reasons for this, and some have already been mentioned. He's leaving the team. They are going to favour Russell. And if you do not expect that, if you think that's wrong, you're either brand new to Formula One, you don't know how sport works, or are you Delulu? Maybe. You might be Delulu Lewis Hamilton fan, perhaps, because surely a team would not be supporting the driver who's about to walk out the door to a direct rival more than a current driver who's committing his future to them. Doesn't make any sense to anyone. That, I think, is part of it. I am also a firm believer that certain periods of Formula One cars just do not suit certain Formula One drivers. For example, Daniel Ricciardo. Absolute force to be reckoned with. We move into the more 3 or 4 year recent period of cars. He's nowhere. He's one of the worst drivers on the grid regularly. Does that mean that Daniel Ricciardo is rubbish? No. But I do think that his driving style mixed with how development of the car has taken place is not complementary. And I think Lewis Hamilton is one of those people. I think Lewis Hamilton is still up there with the creme de la creme of Formula One racing. But I think he's having to drive against all of his instincts, all of his natural ability, because the car asks for it in such a different manner. And what's sad for Lewis Hamilton is qualifying, is important of the race, but he's got so many records that he's achieved. And, I'm sure that there'll be a lot of people that say, oh, they don't care about records, they just want to win. He's got over 100 pole positions. And you look at people like Senna, you now look at people like Verstappen, you look at people like Schumacher, and you go, well, Senna was beating 11 times in his whole career by his teammate or something like that in qualifying, some stupid statistic. He holds currently the record for most poles in a row. Verstappen almost beat that. Schumacher's pole record is phenomenal, barely ever beaten by his teammate. And now you're going to look at Lewis Hamilton, who statistically is still the greatest Formula One driver of all time, but his qualifying record, which has always been a real strength of his up until maybe the last 2 seasons, is plummeting in percentage difference of wins over his teammate. And Russell should not be sniffed at. He's a fantastic driver and he's showing that. But I do think that Lewis is almost damaging his credibility by maybe sticking around longer than he needed to. I know he lost that title in 21, but he had 7. He had over 100 wins, over 100 poles. This is a sensational landmark that he's achieved. And I think that him being here is not complimentary. And I'm nervous when he goes to Ferrari that something might not change and that he might get to Ferrari when Leclerc beats him. It's definitely a possibility because he's at the end of his career. The car doesn't suit him. I think he's a bit upset still over 2021. There's a lot of mitigating factors there. He has every right to say this about him and George Russell, but I do think it's just an emotional response. But he's not on his A game anymore.
Yeah, I mean it's pure emotion. I mean he will take qualifying wins from Russell for the rest of this year. I've got no doubt about that. But could I see the end result being 16-8 to Russell or something along those lines? Yeah, I could. George Russell has quite clearly got the measure of Lewis Hamilton on qualifying this year. I think last year and the year before when they were teammates as well, it was fairly even. And I do still think race pace wise, it's fairly even as well. I don't think there's much in it. But at the moment, what is costing Lewis Hamilton is his starting spot. And if he doesn't rectify that, at least to some degree, he is going to struggle. There will be more opportunities to make overtakes in some races, but there will also be races like Monaco where not only is it difficult to overtake, but your pace is so similar to your teammate that whoever qualifies ahead is probably going to get the better result. And I just don't know what he's going to be able to do for the rest of this season. But like you, Sam, I am concerned about when he joins Ferrari because he's going from George Russell, who is a very good qualifier, to Charles Leclerc, who might be one of about 2 drivers on the grid, or maybe 3, that are better than George Russell in qualifying. There aren't many. George Russell's brilliant, but Charles Leclerc certainly has a claim to be the best qualifier on the grid. I might put him there. Like, he is sensational on a Saturday. And if Lewis Hamilton, hopefully for his sake, the reasons are relating to Mercedes and upgrades and everything else in the environment. Hopefully for his sake, those are the reasons, because if they're not, and it is something more fundamental about his driving ability, Leclerc will wipe the floor in qualifying with him, if that happens. Are you concerned about his move to Ferrari in terms of qualifying pace, Harry?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I feel like you could get to next year and it's a reset for Hamilton and he's back on form. I think based on current performance, yes, you'd be worried because he doesn't look like the same sort of qualifying driver that he used to be. But I could just see him rocking up to Ferrari next year. He's made the change. It's a fresh move, and he's back to Lewis Hamilton of old. But it's going to be tough because, like you say, Charles Leclerc. I know these are called George Russell this, but Charles Leclerc is Mr. Saturday, Monsieur Saturday. But he's very good. Sorry, Ben.
Thanks, David.
He's very good.
For making an appearance. Appreciate that.
But he is sensational on the Saturday, as you say, Ben. And I think Hamilton will find it tough. So, it kind of remains to be seen because, if you're looking at it right now, and again, it's probably a bit of recency bias, you'd say, well, Leclerc could wipe the floor with Hamilton based on current form. But I feel like that won't happen. I feel like Hamilton will get to Ferrari. It'll be a reset, and it'll be a tight. It'll be tight. I think it'll still be a tight battle between them in terms of the best pace on a Saturday. But I don't think he's gonna be destroyed by Charles Leclerc.
Let's move on. A quick comment on Ferrari and the reports coming out about the Concord Agreement, which is due for renewal. They have historically claimed bonus payments simply for their, what do they call it? Like legacy payment, historic. They've been in F1 a long time, and F1 go, thank you for being in F1 a long time. Here's some money.
That's what Harry gets for being on the show.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, no, that's why he doesn't turn up sometimes.
Much like Ferrari. So it looks like in the new
Ferrari of podcasting.
Yeah. It looks like in the new Concord Agreement they will be maintaining these bonus payments. Let's go to the Red Bull of this podcast. Sam, what do you think?
Oh, thanks. Toxic and annoying. I'm joking, Red Bull fans.
Made the joke for me.
Right. Yeah, there you go. This is wrong. This is so wrong. Why? We get money for being here longer than you. Red Bull didn't exist, so they can't be here as long as Ferrari. Maserati were back there. If they turned up now, we were at the start. Mercedes were at the start. There's so many mitigating factors. I understand the point that Ferrari never left, and they've been here a long time, and they're Ferrari. And don't get me wrong, I bloody love Ferrari. And if one were to pull up outside right now and someone said to me, do you want the keys? I'd go, yes, please. Please don't take it away. I want it immediately. Obviously, it's a Ferrari. We all like the red car. But I don't think they deserve extra money just because they've stuck around for a long time. Formula One would be okay without Ferrari. Genuinely, it would be okay. Yeah, we've missed them. I would miss them. But we'd survive. Also means that Andretti could come in because there are going to be 9 teams. That's another conversation. They do not need bonus payments for simply existing. And it's frustrating that there's talks of, we share the money. We can't have another team come in because, the cash is not being divvied up properly. And then Ferrari are walking away with a legacy payment in their pocket worth millions and millions of dollars. I just don't think it's fair. Your point is a competing sport. Manchester United in the Premier League don't get a legacy payment because they won a long time ago and they're still walking around in the Premier League. That's just not how other sports work. I disagree with it massively. I hate that it's still in the Concord Agreement. Ferrari, I love you, but no matter what you do, you don't deserve extra money for simply existing.
Your thoughts, Harry?
Yeah, maybe use that, and I think you suggested before, Ben. Maybe use that extra money and give it to another team, like an additional team. I don't know, Andretti. Maybe?
No, they won't be competitive.
I'm all for respecting your elders and all that and
Ferrari walking around with a Zimmer frame. Like, what's going on?
But I think there is something in the fact that teams have been around longer. There should be not even a reward, but something to acknowledge that fact. But this ain't it. I don't think this is how this should work anymore. I don't think this is how it should have worked in the first place. But different times. Yeah, why? why is this needed? It's an equal footing. I know they've been around for a long time, but as you say, Sam, Mercedes were there at the start. I know they weren't there the whole time, and McLaren have been around for a good chunk as well, and they're not getting this. So it just doesn't make in this cost cap era of Formula One. This makes 0 sense. So stop it. Let that money go somewhere else, like to another team. I don't agree with this at all. Find other ways to acknowledge the history and the importance of Ferrari within Formula One, because that is undeniable. But give them extra money. No, stop it. Stop it. F1.
Do Penske get money in IndyCar?
Nah, they just own the series.
They own it.
But they don't go, pat on the back for us being Penske, more money. I mean, that's very different. I suppose if it was F1 and the F stood for Ferrari, then maybe things would be different.
Ferrari won. Yeah.
They get their bonus payments in push to pass seconds that they're not allowed.
Gets an extra 30 seconds every race.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is such a bygone era, like legacy thing that still exists, and it just shouldn't. Why I don't know what question to ask here. When will F1 finally gain some self-worth? Like, you are a worldwide global series enjoyed by millions. It is a privilege to go racing in your series, but yet they continue to be dictated by the teams.
They're scared.
They are terrified, and I don't understand why. Like, everything that happens within this sport, like, we need to keep giving Ferrari this money because what happens if they go? No, if they go, they will lose out. You'll lose out as well, sure, but they would lose out. They're not going to make that call because F1 means so much to Ferrari, and F1 means so much to these other teams. They should stop making these payments. It doesn't make sense. It's not fair. And the sooner they get rid of this sort of... It's a very Bernie Ecclestone era deal, isn't it? Just get rid of it. And I don't know if I've got too much more to say on it. It just seems like such a no-brainer to me that they should go ahead and do this. And F1 in all aspects should just stand up for themselves a little bit more and realise that, yeah, you should be glad that you are racing for us. If you'd like to go elsewhere, go elsewhere. We'll be fine. We'll find someone else. Because this is a privilege to race in this championship and you don't govern us.
On the flip side, devil's advocate, keep the legacy payments, but then what's the criteria for other teams earning them? Because McLaren, joined in 66? So what year did they start unlocking some legacy payments?
Well, they have also been, I'm not sure if these are still active, but they have had, I can't remember the term for it, but it's like constructors, there's a constructors group that also get a smaller number, which is Williams, McLaren, potentially Merck and Red Bull. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I'm not sure if those are still active, to be fair. I don't know. Just scrap it completely, please.
Yeah, Williams was 77 as well. They've been around for, nearly 50 years. How long do you need to be in it to pick up these extra payments? Ferrari, no. You earn enough money.
True that. Let's take our final break at this point. On the other side, it's F1 back and forth.
And birthday shout-outs.
Plus bear with. There we go.
Good content this is.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for... Sorry, I'm thinking ahead because I know I need to get the sound ready and it's not ready at the moment.
Welcome back every time.
Well, Ben, we'll talk whilst you get it ready. So
okay, sure.
Welcome back every time.
Welcome back every time.
Play back and forth.
It's one of my favourite Ben blunders. You've got to the non-serious end of the show now, so it's okay for us to do silly things.
Almost as good as when Ben said, "Welcome to the podcast" that time.
I loved podcasts.
I'd forgotten about that. Anyway, I've actually got
it,
music now. Yeah,
Bottom.
Here we go.
F1. Back and forth, it's F1. Back and forth, it goes backwards. Then goes forth, it's F1. Back and forth, F1.
Okay, F1 back and forth. If you haven't listened to one of these before, where have you been? But thank you for listening. Back and forth. Sam will go up against Harry on a category that has a number of correct answers. Today it's 20. They'll go back and forth until one of them can't think of an answer or gives a wrong answer, at which point they lose and the other person wins the game. Today's category, I want you to tell me who are the last 20 drivers to race for Ferrari. So, in theory, I think you can get a good way through this. The last couple might be tricky. Harry, kick us off. Last 20 drivers to race for Ferrari.
This is a dumb question. We're including who currently races for
Yes.
Ferrari, correct? Okay, Charles Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc is one of the last 20 drivers to race for Ferrari. He actually won at the weekend. He won the Monaco Grand Prix.
Oh, well done.
Sam.
I think I'll go for a guy called Carlos Sainz.
He was also in that race, and he was on the podium.
Thank goodness.
It's a great start. Harry.
Sebastian Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel is a correct answer. No championships, but ran Lewis Hamilton close a couple of times. Sam?
Ollie Behrman.
Ollie Behrman. I was wondering if you might forget about him, but yes, he raced earlier this season, of course, at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Harry.
Kimi Räikkönen.
Kimi Räikkönen, long-time partner of Sebastian Vettel, of course, took his last win at the US Grand Prix. Oh, God. I was going to say that was only a couple of years ago. It's not a couple of years ago.
6.
6 years ago?
years
That's
ago.
ridiculous.
6? That's insane.
That is insane, Jeremy. Sam?
Fernando Alonso.
Fernando Alonso, a correct answer. Again, a close championship contender, even if he had absolutely no right to be. Harry?
Felipe Massa.
Felipe Massa. You're making my job easy because you're just going down the list as I've got them here. So thank you for that. But yes, correct answer. Sam?
Rubens Barrichello.
Rubens Barrichello, a correct answer. Of course, teammate with Michael Schumacher for a number of years. Took his first win in the year 2000. Harry?
Michael Schumacher.
It's all right, mate. You gave up the most obvious one.
Yeah, that's true. I could have given you the answer almost. Yes, Michael Schumacher is a correct answer because he was a teammate of Rubens Barrichello, as I said. There you go.
Very good.
Next one.
Eddie Irvine.
Eddie Irvine is a correct answer. He was also a teammate of Michael Schumacher, which I can now say. Harry.
Giancarlo Fisichella.
Yeah, stood in 2009 with the injured Felipe Massa. Sam?
Yeah, now I'm starting to get a little bit sketchy on my timelines. And this panics me. I'm going to go Jean Alesi.
Jean Alesi is a correct answer. Of course, raced for Ferrari in the 1990s, took his one race win at the 95 Canadian Grand Prix. Harry?
Luca Badoa.
Luca Badoa, the other substitute driver for Felipe Massa in 2009. Going well here. We've got 7 more answers on the board, Sam.
Oh, I'm going to go further back, and I feel like that's worrying me, but I'm going to go with Prost.
Prost is a correct answer. He is on this list. 6 more to go. Harry?
Mika Salo.
Salo is a correct answer, substituting for Michael Schumacher in 1999. Sam?
I don't like that Harry is able to remember all of the substitute drivers, and I'm having to go back into the archives of time to try and remember actual drivers.
I am out of substitute drivers now. That was it.
Okay. The issue is I'm also out of drivers I definitely know drive for Ferrari off the top of my head. So that's a problem. So let's just knock me out. Ratzenberger.
Ratzenberger is not a correct answer, I'm afraid.
Good. He's my go-to if I can't remember.
It's good to have that sort of an answer, but better when it's right. There were 5 drivers left on this list. Harry, can you name any of them?
Gerhard Berger.
Berger is a correct answer.
How far back are we going?
Prost was the penultimate answer on this list, if that gives a clue.
Okay, so the other ones...
Dr. Nigel Mansell.
Dr. Nige is the last name on this list.
Do you know what? I always forget he drove for Ferrari. It feels wrong.
I think he likes to forget it as well.
A Brit at Ferrari. It's never going to work. It's Larini.
Larini is a good answer,
Nice.
yes.
Well done.
These 3 are, I would say, the most difficult answers on the board. But yeah, Larini is one of them.
There's one in. How many left?
2.
Oh damn! Who's the? Was Prost the last? Oh no, you said penultimate.
Yeah.
But Mansell was the last one. So essentially, you've got Mansell as the last answer, Prost was the penultimate answer, and then you've got these 2.
And above. Oh man. I'd be so John Lacey.
Yep.
There's one in 1994, right? Is it 94?
I think one of them is, at least one of them is 94, yes.
No, I can't remember who it is. I'll cave.
Fair enough. Tough answers. Ivan Capelli is one of them. And then Morbidelli was the other one. So 2 difficult answers.
Yeah, okay, I got those. I'm fine with that.
Even so,
No, I wouldn't got those.
got a good way through that list. Well done. Harry, you are today's winner.
Well done, mate.
Whoa.
Before we go, there is time for one more thing, and it is, of course, the May birthday shout-outs for Patreon.
We've remembered properly on an actual episode. Well done. Well done, Ben, actually, because he was the one that remembered. Classic. Okay, so loads of happy birthdays for May, which is lovely. We've got Rye Guy, May 26th. Happy birthday. That was yesterday as we record this. So I hope you enjoy the Indy 500 and the Monaco GP. We love you. Twyla, happy birthday for May. Sam, not me, May 30th. Happy birthday for the end of the week. Richard, May 20th last week. Happy birthday. Ian Cohen, May 26th. You share a birthday with Rygo. What a prestigious day for both of you. Ironblood, cool name. If that's your legal government name, sick. Your birthday of May. All of May. You deserve it with that name. And then Barry K, May 21st. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to everyone in May. Those are for our top tier Patreon subscribers. We've got even more in June. Your name could be on this list if you subscribe. The link's in the description. Look at that. Celebratory clapping.
Don't have anything birthday-wise on the soundboard, so clapping will have to do.
Happy birthday.
Nope.
Okay.
Stick to your drill noises. Sam, if you wouldn't mind getting us out of here.
Oh, good. Good. It's gotten silly again. Folks, thanks for listening. Join the Discord. The link's in the description. You'll need to be in there because next week, when we do our Wednesday preview, it'll be the Canada preview, and you can get involved. You can do submissions to make sure that you hear yourself on the podcast from the Discord. We've already mentioned Patreon. Check it out. It really helps the show massively more than you know. If you can't afford it or you think, you know what, you guys just aren't worth my money, but I'll listen to the free stuff. That's all right. We love you being here. We appreciate it. Follow us on social media, Late Breaking F1. Watch on YouTube. Do it both. Listen and watch. Those are the ultimate fans. Late Breaking F1 on YouTube as well. We've got a PO box. Ben received a letter the other day. We're yet to hear what's in it. And then we'll be releasing a video of all of our PO box openings because we've got some fantastic stuff from you lovely people. So thank you. We'll be back on Sunday for another standard episode because, of course, no race. So join us for that one. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Bruno Fuming.
And remember, keep breaking late.